When he calls himself Wolfgun Blood, he's not channeling his inner Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I finally realized why Uncle starts speaking in the language of the other world to the nurse. I am 100% certain that I knew a girl in college who had that exact same sweater. Welcome to Orphan Anime, everybody. The main plot of Uncle from Another World is that a middle-aged man who's been in a coma for several years wakes up and reveals that he's been living in a magical fantasy world. He teams up with his college-age nephew to make YouTube videos as a way to support them both, all while sharing his experiences from the other world and the advice he gleaned from playing video games as a young man. A lot of people are going to skip this one because the next new episode won't come out until late November, but I recommend giving this show a chance, especially if you're watching in 2023 or beyond, when we'll all have flying cars and all the episodes will have been released. Because even in a strong year for comedies, Uncle from Another World is one of my favorite comedies of 2022. Let's check it out. The uncle in Uncle from Another World is a lone wolf type whose physical appearance, lack of social graces, and choice of video game console makes him a social pariah both in the other world and in this one. His real name is almost never used, though you can catch it in episode 7 if you pay attention, or if you look it up online, so I'll just refer to him as Uncle during this video. At the age of 17, Uncle became Truck-kun's latest victim and was isekai'd off to another world, where he lived for 17 years. He becomes a powerful magician in the other world, but it doesn't go to his head. Despite his rough looks and rougher social qualities, he's a really decent guy, which is one of my favorite parts of the show. It took me a few times watching the opening scene, but I finally realized why Uncle starts speaking in the language of the other world to the nurse after he already realizes that he's back in Japan. It's because the nurse is hot. Everyone in the other world is ridiculously good looking, to the point where they think that Uncle is some variant of orc or goblin because he's not an attractive man. From their point of view, it's like going from the Quintessential Quintuplets to a Satoshi Kon anime. No offense. Because he's pretty much the only ugly guy in the entire world, the people there hunt him down as a monster. The nurse, on the other hand, is noticeably pretty, so Uncle assumes she's from the other world. I thought at first that she was just humoring him or maybe not listening to what he was saying, but now I wonder if she actually understands that language because she's originally from the other world, which would be pretty funny. There are a few reasons why I was hesitant to start the show. The first is isekai overload. We've had so many shows where a character is transported into a fantasy world, and I think most fans are getting a bit burned out by this genre. But you know what? If a show is good, the genre doesn't matter nearly as much. The artwork from the show also didn't look all that flashy or impressive, so I was worried that it might be visually boring. But one thing this show knows how to do is use contrast for comedic effect. The last red flag for me was the delays in production, and this is a big one for a lot of people. I had heard that Uncle from Another World had to take a 2-week delay because of COVID. Unfortunately, the animation staff recently got hit by another larger bout of COVID, so they've decided to re-release the first 7 episodes on Japanese TV for the fall season until they catch up to where they are now. This means that we won't get a new episode until November 24th at the earliest, which is Thanksgiving here in the US. On the plus side, if you haven't gotten into the show yet, you've got plenty of time to catch up. One of the best parts of the show is how the different characters play off of each other. Here's a rundown of 4 of the main characters. Takafumi is the nephew from this world, I guess. He seems like a good person without being too much of a goody two-shoes. He is exploiting his uncle's abilities for profit after all, but he's the only person in his family who shows up at the hospital to straighten out Uncle's affairs after he wakes up from his coma. Fujimiya is a late bloomer who has turned into a beautiful and polite young woman. I am 100% certain that I knew a girl in college who had that exact same sweater, like down to the designs on the front. Wish I could remember her name, but I was focused mainly on the sweater. Fujimiya knew Takafumi when they were kids, back when her looks and manners were what you might call unfortunate. She was a bit of a bully, but seemed well disposed towards Takafumi. Her ogre voice during those childhood flashbacks is hilarious. Present-day Fujimiya has a crush on Takafumi and tries several tactics to try to get him to reciprocate her feelings, but he just sees her as a good friend. In a surprise twist, Mabel is a beautiful young woman. They're all beautiful young women. She's a member of the Ice Clan and the keeper of the divine Frostblade sword, which is the only weapon that can defeat the Blaze Dragon. Uncle's actions throw Mabel into a bit of an identity crisis that causes her to question her purpose, but I won't spoil what he does. Mabel has some extremely lazy and unsociable qualities that she keeps below the surface. And every time she starts to question whether she should make more of an effort to integrate with the villagers and do some actual work, Uncle steers her back towards the path of a shut-in. Takafumi calls Elf Girl Uncle Stalker, and that's probably the best description of her. It's definitely the funniest description, at least. From her point of view, Uncle basically married her with a ring ceremony, so she probably feels like a wife who's been treated terribly by an exasperating husband. She's a gorgeous elven woman who plays the tsundere trope of acting cold and distant to hide her true feelings of warmth and affection for Uncle. She calls him Orc Face because of his ugliness, but she still seems to show up wherever he goes. Uncle from Another World will occasionally hit you with some early 2000s references, such as Uncle's love of flip phones or the YouTube adpocalypse, but most of the nostalgia bait in the show comes in the form of video game references, especially Sega games and consoles. Uncle sees his devotion to Sega as his life's calling, and he lives his life by the principles he learns from Sega games. There's a great article on Anime News Network by Heidi Kemps that not only explains all the game references, but also gives some context for a few other gaming Easter eggs, like the magazine ranking for Guardian Heroes, and even the crazy pseudonyms that Uncle gives himself in the other world. When he calls himself Wolfgun Blood, for example, he's not channeling his inner Arnold Schwarzenegger like I thought. He's naming himself after an actual boss from the real-life game Alien Soldier. I'll put a link to the article in the description. Another thing that makes this anime stand out is that it knows how to poke fun at isekai and pop culture conventions. I love the truck-kun bait and switch in the opening scene. It's pretty much against the law now to start an isekai anime without having someone get hit by a truck. So when you see Takafumi cross the street in the opening shot as a truck comes bearing down on him, you're like, okay, here it comes. And then it just keeps rolling past and Takafumi crosses the street like nothing happened. Uncle from Another World is masterful in its ability to set up the viewer's expectations, only to pull the rug out and completely wreck the sentimental or dramatic tone. Oh, you think something romantic is going to happen between Uncle and Elf Girl or Takafumi and Fujimiya? No, someone's going to fail to read the room, usually Uncle, and it's going to be hilariously anticlimactic. It reminds me a lot of Monthly Girl's Nozuki-kun, if you've seen that one. Like Nozuki-kun, this show is so good at that bait and switch that you can find yourself getting fully invested in the setup, even when you know that some kind of twist is going to show up and ruin the whole thing. Even though I've only been able to see the first 7 episodes so far, this has been one of my favorite comedies of the year. I give Uncle from Another World an 8 out of 10 Sega Saturns, which sounds a lot better than 8 out of 10 Sega Genocide, which I guess is the plural of Genesises, but it sounds kind of like a war crime. I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of the show later this year. Now, fall season is packed. There's probably at least 15 shows that I'm interested in, which is a lot for me, but I'll still be making time for Uncle from Another World when it resumes in November. I hope that you will too. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.